Let us pray. Oh, great merciful God, we come before you so thankful for this first day of the week that you bless us with, to be able to sing praises to you, to learn more about you, Lord, and to be gathered together with like-minded Christians and lifting one another up. Lord, as such, please be with Brother Tim as he presents the lesson this evening. Allow him to have a steady recollection of things he has prepared, and allow us to take some from his lesson, apply it to our day-to-day lives, to be an example into this world. Lord, ask that as we continue this service, it always conducted in accordance to your will, Lord. Thank you for everything you bless us with. Please forgive us our sins. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
You are using the book tonight and you would like to mark the book of Song of Invitation as number 939. Number 939. Before Tim comes and brings us the message tonight, we'll sing number 450. 450. Let's stand as we sing this song. Give me the Bible, star gladness lead me to cheer the wonder, lone and tempest tossed. No storm can hide that radiant peaceful gleaming, since Jesus came to seek and save the lost. Give me the Bible, holy message shining. Thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible when my heart is broken, when sin and grief have filled my soul with fear. Give me the precious words by Jesus spoken, hold a faith's lamp to show my Savior near. Give me the Bible, holy message shining. Thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible, lamp of life immortal. Hold up thy splendor by the open grave. Show me the light from heaven's shining portal. Show me the glory hid in Jordan's way. Give me the Bible, holy message shining. Thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Please be seated.
Well, good evening to everyone. We're thankful that you're back with us for this evening's worship service. For those that are visiting with us, we're always thankful for visitors to be a part of our assembly. Thankful for those that can be watching online, for those that were not able to be here. We hope we'll be able to be encouraged tonight as we study together and sing these songs and lift up these prayers. Hopefully it'll be a very encouraging evening for us. Tonight, for our lesson tonight, I want to talk about Saul, a good man gone bad. Well, as we look at Saul's life, about King Saul, the first king of Israel, we're going to see that he had a very good beginning, an excellent beginning. But the message I want to share with tonight is not enough just to begin well. We have to end well also. So if you think about this situation, Israel has been in the land now. They have been ruled by a series of judges. God would rule them through the judges that he rose up to deliver them. But a time finally arose when they were no longer satisfied with judges. They wanted a king to rule, just like all the other nations. They wanted a king to rule over them, to be like the nations around about them. We see this in 1 Samuel chapter 8, beginning verse 4. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together, and they came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said to him, Behold, you're old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like the nations. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. And we find here that the people came to Samuel. He was the last of the judges. And look, Samuel, you're getting old. You don't have any spring left in your step, kind of, so to speak. And your sons, they're just not as good as you are. Your sons, they're just not the same caliber that you are. So we want a king to be over us. And we want to be like the other nations. You know, they've got kings, and their kings rule them, and their kings go out to battle with them. And so we want that same thing. Brethren, we need to take for a moment and be warned by this. Anytime we look at the world, and we look at the way the world dresses, and we look at the way the world acts, and we look at the way the world talks, and we look at the things that the world does, anytime we see that and we think to ourselves, I'd kind of like to get involved. I'd like to have my little bit of that. Warning flags, warning bells ought to be going on. We should not even want to be like the world. But that's where they find themselves. We want to be like the world, and God warns them. He said, look, let me tell you what's going to happen if you get a king. He says this in 1 Samuel 8, beginning verse 11, going to verse 18. He says, let me tell you what your king is going to do to you. If you have a king, he's going to take your sons for his armies. He'll send them out to battle. He is going to take your sons to work in his fields. He's going to take your daughters to be his perfumers and his cooks and his bakers. He's going to take the best of your fields. He's going to take the best of your vineyards. He's going to take the best of your groves to be his property, his possessions. He's going to take 1/10 of your crops, 1/10 of your flocks, 1/10 of your herds. He will tax you for these things. And then when it gets really heavy on you, when you feel the weight of what he's doing, you're going to cry out to me in verse 18, and I'm not going to listen to you. So be aware. Be aware of what you're asking for and see the things that are going to happen. Do you still want a king? Don't you want me to be your king? God is asking them. But the people wouldn't listen. 1 Samuel 8, beginning verse 19. But the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. And they said, no, but there shall be a king over us, that we may be like the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us to fight our battles. They would not listen. We want to have a king to be like everybody else. And so God chose a king for them. We read of this in 1 Samuel chapter 9, verses 1 and 2, and then verses 15 through 17. It says, there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah, a Benjamite, a man of wealth. He's a wealthy man. He had a son whose name was Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. From his shoulders upwards, he was taller than any of the people. Now that day before Saul came, the Lord had revealed to Samuel, tomorrow about this time, I will send to you a man from the land of Benjamin. You shall anoint him to be a prince over my people Israel. He shall save my people from the hand of the Philistines. For I have seen my people, because their cry has come to me. When Samuel saw Saul, the Lord told him, here is the man of whom I spoke to you. He is the one who shall restrain my people. And so God says, look, when you see him, he's the one. This is the one that I've chosen. And he was going to have the rule over my people. And so as we see what God does here, he chooses this young man. And as Saul begins his reign as king, he has a wonderful attitude. He's got a wonderful disposition. He really begins his time as king. He begins well, but sadly it doesn't end well. As we look at his character, we're going to see that at some point a change takes place in this man's life. But he began as a man of great character. He began as a humble and unassuming young man. Look in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 9, verse 18 to 21. Then Saul approached Samuel in the gate and said, tell me where the house of the seer. Where's the house of the seer? Samuel answered Saul, I am the seer. Go up before me to the high place, for today you shall eat with me, and in the morning I will let you go, and I will tell you all that is on your mind. As for the donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, do not set your mind on them. They have been found. And for what and for whom is all that is desirable in Israel? Is it not for you and for your father's house? Saul answered, I'm a Benjamite, from the least of the tribe of Israel. And is not my clan the humblest of all the clans of the tribes of Benjamin? Then why have you spoken to me this way? Why are you talking like this to me? You know, here we find that Samuel has come to Saul, or Saul has come to Samuel. They say, can you tell me where the seer's house? Can you tell me where the prophet of God lives? He says, I'm the seer. God has allowed Saul and Samuel to come together through his providence. Saul has been searching for his father's donkeys. Some donkeys went missing. He's been searching for these donkeys for 3 days now. And now he is told, well, don't worry about the donkeys. Don't set your heart. They've been found. Everything's okay. But you stay with me, and tomorrow I'll let you go, but I'm going to tell everything that's on your heart. And oh, by the way, let me tell you something. Do you realize that you are the hope of Israel? Everybody, he's talking about the desire of Israel. What was the desire of Israel? A king. Israel is desiring a king. And is that not for you and your father's house? He says, wait a minute. Our tribe is the smallest tribe in Israel, and my family is next to nothing in that tribe. Why are you talking to me like this? There's nothing special about me. I'm not a hero. I don't understand. Why are you even saying these things to me? But God had chosen him. In 1 Samuel chapter 10, verses 15 to 16, and Saul's uncle said, please tell me what Samuel said to you. And Saul said to his uncle, he told us plainly that the donkeys had been found, but about the matter of the kingdom of which Samuel had spoken, he did not tell him anything. He wasn't boastful. Now just put yourself in his position. You're a young man, and he says, hey, guess what? You're going to be the very first king of Israel. If he had said that to you, what would you have done? Man, I'd be telling everybody. I'd be telling my neighbors, my friends. I'd be going through, hey, I'm going to be, you've been wanting a king. Here I am. Aren't you happy? But he's not doing that. He didn't even tell his family. No, at least he'd go home and say, hey, Mom and Dad, guess what? Your son has done good. You know, your son is going to be king. He didn't do that. He did not brag. He did not boast. He shows his humility. He shows his humble nature. And then in 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 20 through 22, then Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near, and the tribe of Benjamin was taken by Lot. He brought the tribe of Benjamin near by its clans, and the clan of the Mithrites was taken by Lot. And Saul, the son of Kish, was taken by Lot. But when they sought him, he could not be found. And so they inquired again of the Lord, is there a man still to come? And the Lord said, behold, he's hidden himself among the baggage. He's hiding out there where you've laid all of your stuff. He's not waiting to make his grand entrance. He's not waiting for the shouts and the cheers. He's not waiting for them to lift him up on their shoulders and parade him through the camp. He's hiding in the baggage. It shows his humility. It shows he is not one that's trying to put himself forward. And it reminds me of William Shakespeare's statement. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. That's Saul. It was thrust upon him. And he did not seek this. He did not promote himself. He is a man of humility. He is a man of meekness. And he was not trying to become king. God simply chose him. He started out very humble. He also started out very forgiving and showing great self-control. Book of 1 Samuel 10, verse 25 to verse 27. Then Samuel told the people the rights and duties of the kingship, and he wrote them in a book and laid it up before the Lord. Then Samuel sent all the people away, each to his home. Saul also went to his home in Gibeah, and with him went men of valor whose hearts God had touched. But some worthless fellows said, "How can this man save us?" And they despised him and brought him no present, but he held his peace. Here you've got young Saul. He's been made king. God has done this. He brought them out for the big reveal, and he had them cast lots for this selection process. I think he did this in order to keep down people maybe complaining against Samuel. Well, Samuel just chose him on his own. No, Samuel didn't choose him on his own. God chose him. And so they cast lots, and the lot fell upon Benjamin out of the 12 tribes. And they cast lots, and it fell upon the clan of Saul's family. And they cast the lot again, and the lot kept falling until it landed on the man that God had chosen. God told Samuel privately that Saul would be king, and then publicly, in his providence, he made every lot fall exactly where he wanted it. And Saul becomes king. He sends all the people home. Saul goes home, but there are some base fellows. Who does this guy think he is? Why should he be king? Why should we think he could save us? And they would not respect him. They brought him no gift. But notice, Saul is very forgiving. He does not lash out at these people. He shows his kindness for them, and he just lets it go. That shows character. It shows self-control. It shows a forgiving nature. And then very quickly, now that he's the new king, his first challenge as king arrives. The Ammonites decide to cause trouble. And the Ammonites go to the city of Jabesh Gilead, and they press the city of Jabesh Gilead. They say, "Look, we will not kill you if you allow us one thing. If you will allow us to gouge out all of your right eyes, we'll let you live, and you just serve us." Well, when Saul heard this, he gathered together the men of Israel, 300,000 strong. And they went out and they ambushed, they fought the Ammonites and destroyed them and scattered them, had a great victory over these enemies of God's people. 1 Samuel 11, verse 11. And the next day Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch and struck down the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And those who survived were scattered so that no 2 of them were left together. They hit the ground running, they were slaughtered, they fled, and no person had anybody. They were all scattered off by themselves. A great victory against these enemies. And here is where Saul shows his character. Look at 1 Samuel chapter 11, verse 12 and 13. Then the people said to Samuel, "Who is it that said, 'Shall Saul reign over us? Bring them in that we may put them to death.' But Saul said, 'Not a man shall be put to death this day, for today the Lord has worked salvation in Israel.'" Think about a lesser man. A lesser man, when he's been disrespected by these people, now he's won his first great victory. He's solidifying his support, and his supporters now, hey, those guys that disrespected let's kill them. Let's put them to death. I can imagine a lesser man, Saul, if he was a lesser man, might say, "Hey, you know something? You're exactly right. Bring those guys out here. I will show them what the new king of Israel is going to do if you disrespect me. Bring them out here right now." But he didn't do that. He said, "No, God's given us a victory today. Not one of them will be put to death. God has worked and wrought victory for us today." He began so well. He began so well in starting out for God. But he became corrupt. He had a good start, but it didn't last. He went from being humble and unassuming to being prideful and presumptuous. 1 Samuel, if you'd open up 1 Samuel chapter 13, we'll begin at verse 5 and go to verse 14. 1 Samuel chapter 13, beginning in verse 5. Here we find that he offered an unlawful sacrifice. And the Philistines mustered to fight with Israel 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen and troops like the sand of the seashore in multitude. They came up and encamped at Michmash, to the east of Bethaven. When the men of Israel saw that they were in trouble, for the people were hard pressed, the people hid themselves in caves and in holes and in rocks and in the tombs and in cisterns. And some Hebrews crossed the fords of the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul was still at Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. He waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattering from him. So Saul said, "Bring the burnt offerings here to me, and the peace offerings." And he offered the burnt offering, and as soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him and greet him. Samuel said, "What have you done?" And Saul said, "Well, when I saw the people were scattering from me, and that you did not come within the days appointed, and that the Philistines had mustered at Michmash, I said, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the favor of the Lord. So I forced myself and offered the burnt offering." And Samuel said to Saul, "You have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you. For then the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not continue. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart, and the Lord has commanded him to be a prince over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you." Here we find that they have gathered together. A big battle's coming. A war is coming. And because Samuel has not shown up, Samuel said, "Look, get the people together, and after 7 days I will come. I will offer these sacrifices. I will petition God for you and for the armies of Israel, and then you go out and you go to battle." But he didn't show up in the appointed time. Saul begins to see the people. Some of them they're drifting away. They decide maybe it's time to get back home. Maybe we need to leave. And so he sees the people scattering. He knows that the Philistines are getting ready for battle. So he calls upon himself to offer the sacrifice to God. Only problem with that is that God had determined that only the Levites could offer sacrifice. Saul was from Benjamin. Samuel was a Levite. Samuel could offer the sacrifices, but Saul could not lawfully offer the sacrifice. But in his pride, he did it anyway. In his pride, he thought, well, I can do it just as good as Samuel could do it. And so he did it. And then when Samuel shows up, and I think this obviously was a test, as soon as he finished offering, Samuel shows up. I think it was a test of his faithfulness, a test of his faith in God, to trust in God. And he failed that test. And when Samuel said, "Hey, what have you done?" Notice that Saul blamed Samuel. "Well, you didn't show up when you said you would. If you had been here when you said, I wouldn't have had to have done. You forced my hand. I forced myself to do this because you weren't here. And so really, Samuel, it's really your fault." That's what it sounds like to me, he's saying. And so he offered to God something he had no right to offer. How many people today offer to God things in worship that God hadn't commanded? God didn't command that, but they offer it to God anyway, thinking that they have the right to do things the way they want to do them. We have no right to change God's will. We have no right to change God's plan for how we do things. But Saul thought that he could do it. And because of this, he lost the kingdom. Because he had come to be one who was filled with pride, he acted in an arrogant way, and he lost the kingdom. He went from being one who was humble and unassuming to being one who was prideful and presumptuous. And then second, he went from being one who was forgiving and self-controlled to being vengeful and rash. 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 24. And the men of Israel had been hard pressed that day. So Saul had laid an oath on the people, saying, "Cursed be the man who eats food until it's evening, and I have avenged on my enemies." So none of the people had tasted food. He forbid his army from eating. He said, "I don't want anybody to take not one bite until I get my vengeance on my enemies. You can't eat anything." That was a foolish thing for a military leader to say. What's the old adage about an army? An army travels on its stomach. fighting men have to have energy to fight. And he forbid them from replenishing their energy. It's a foolish thing for him to do. And his son Jonathan was unaware of this command. He was unaware of this oath. And so as he's out, he's been doing his battle. He's been doing things in God's service. He finds some honey out in the forest, and he eats some of the honey. He doesn't know that his father has forbidden this. And so when they tell him, hey, your daddy said you can't eat nothing. Well, Jonathan thinks, well, that's a foolish thing. But it becomes known to King Saul that Jonathan had eaten some food, and Saul wants to kill his own son over this. 1 Samuel chapter 14, verses 43 to verse 45. Then Saul said to Jonathan, tell me what you've done. And Jonathan told him, I tasted a little honey with the tip of the staff that was in my hand. Here I am. Will I die? And Saul said, God do so to me and more also. You shall surely die, Jonathan. Then the people said to Saul, shall Jonathan die, who has worked this great salvation in Israel? Far from it. As the Lord lives, there shall not one hair on his head fall to the ground, for he has worked with God this day. So the people ransomed Jonathan so that he did not die. Isn't that an amazing change that's taking place in Saul? He went from being a man who was willing to forgive those who rejected him as king. He saved their lives, those who disrespected him. And now he's going to kill his own son because he tasted some honey. He broke an oath that he did not even know existed. And Saul is going to murder his own son because of it. Not only he's threatening to murder his son because of this, his rash command, his rash oath has caused the people to sin. 1 Samuel chapter 14, backing up verse 31 to verse 33, says his army, the people, they struck down the Philistines that day from Michmash to Ajalon, and the people were very faint. And the people pounced on the spoil and took sheep and oxen and calves and slaughtered them on the ground, and the people ate them with the blood. Then they told Saul, behold, the people are sinning against the Lord by eating with the blood. See, God had commanded them to not eat blood. That comes from Genesis chapter 9 and verse 4. But you shall not eat the flesh with its life. That is its blood. The life is in the blood. And God said, you don't eat blood. And so they would slaughter their animals. Saul said, you bring a big rock. And they were to slaughter the animals on the rock so that the blood could drain. They had to drain the blood before they ate the meat. And so he caused them to sin by his rash vow. Even today in the New Testament, we have this prohibition against eating blood in Acts 15, verses 19 through 20. Therefore, my judgment is that we should not trouble those of the Gentiles who turn to God, but should write to them to abstain from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, and from what has been strangled, and from blood. Even today, God says, you don't eat the blood. You don't eat the blood, the things that are strangled. Meat is to be bled before it is consumed. And so he has broken all of these commands. He's caused the people to sin against God because of his rash vow. And then the final thing we can see about him is he's totally changed in his character. He rejected the clear commands of God. 1 Samuel chapter 15, beginning verse 2, going to verse 3, then skipping to verse 9. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I have noted what Amalek did to Israel in opposing them on the way that when they came up out of Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. He said, you slaughter them all. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and the oxen and the fatted calves and the lambs and all that was good and would not utterly destroy them, and all that was despised and worthless they devoted to destruction. Here we find in this passage that Samuel claimed, he's going to claim that he's done everything that God wanted him to do when Samuel shows up. But he said, I want you to go out and I want you to destroy Amalek, his kingdom, his people, because of what they did when all of my people came out of Egypt. Well, you have to go back in their history. What happened? What did Amalek do? Well, you go back to the book of Deuteronomy, in Deuteronomy 25, verse 17 through 19. He said, remember what Amalek did to you on the way you came out of Egypt, how he attacked you on the way when you were faint and weary and cut off your tail, those who were lagging behind you, and he did not fear God. Therefore, when the Lord your God has given you rest from all of your enemies around you, in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance to possess, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. You shall not forget. So here is what they did. This is why God wanted them to be utterly destroyed, because of what they did to his people. They attacked Israel from the rear. He talks about, he cut off the tail. The rear end of their caravan, their convoy. Who was back there? Those that couldn't travel as fast as everybody else. You've got the old. You've got the sick. You've got the young. Mothers with their young children. And Amalek attacked them from the rear and slaughtered them. And God says, don't you forget. Do not forget what they have done to you. But Saul forgot. And he did not follow the command of the Lord. And so he is so corrupt by this time, he does not even realize that he's disobeying God. And Samuel comes to him. 1 Samuel 15, beginning verse 13. It says, and Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, blessed be you of the Lord, I have performed the commandment of the Lord. And Samuel said, well, what then is the bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the oxen that I hear? And Saul said, well, they have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen, and sacrificed to the Lord your God, and the rest we have devoted to destruction. So as Samuel comes up to Saul, Saul claims, I've done exactly what God told me to do. I have fulfilled God's commands. I have obeyed God to the fullest, and I've done everything God told me to do. He said, well, why do I hear these animals? Why do I hear the sheep and the oxen? What does all this mean? You have not kept God's commands. You have disobeyed God. Look at what he has offered, an unlawful sacrifice. He's had a foolish, rash command that caused the people to sin. He wants to kill his own son over this debacle that he himself has caused. He's openly defied God's commands, and he doesn't even realize that he's done it. He's become so corrupt, so prideful, so hard of heart, he does not even realize he's being disobedient to God. And because of this, the kingdom is ripped from his grasp. If you would open again to 1 Samuel chapter 15, begin at verse 22. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 22 to verse 28. And Samuel said, has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you from being king. Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. You just stop right there for a second. Saul just said, I did this because I feared the people and I obeyed what they said. Wait a minute, Saul, aren't you the king? Didn't God, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't God make you king? Well, yeah. Then why didn't you tell the people to stop? Why are you doing what the people tell you to do? They're supposed to do what you tell them to do. So he failed in his responsibility to lead the people. Then picking up again at verse 25. Now therefore, please, he says, look, I was afraid of the people, I obeyed their voice, but now therefore please pardon my sin and return with me that I may bow before the Lord. And Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. As Samuel turned to go, Saul seized the skirt of his robe, and it tore. And Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you this day, and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better than you. He said, hey, won't you go back with me? I'll try to make it up to God. I'll try to make things right with God. And Samuel said, it's too late. It's too late. God's already made up his mind. God has chosen someone who's better than you, who will lead his people. It's too late for you to change what's going to happen. That young man who started out so good, Saul started out with so much promise. He had such good character, such good qualities, and he allowed himself to be corrupted by this power, and he turned bad. A good man turned bad. And another young man who was better than him would be made king. And that young man's name was David. Saul, a good man, has gone bad. From this, we learn that, yes, it's important to start well, but more important than that, you got to end well. You've got to finish the course. It would actually be better to get off to a rocky start and then finish strong in the end. It would be better to do that than to start out strong and then have everything fall apart at the wheels at the end. As you think about that, how are things in your life? How's your spiritual life? Are you bound for the kingdom? Saul had the kingdom. He was bound for the kingdom, but the kingdom was ripped away from him. As we look at our own spiritual lives, are we in danger of having the kingdom ripped away from us? Are we in danger of losing heaven because we've allowed sin to corrupt our lives? Have we started out well, but are we in danger of faltering at the end? Do we need to rededicate ourselves? Do we need to be restored to the Lord? As you think about your own life tonight, God has given us time. Saul was told, you have no time. God's made up his mind. You have no time to win the kingdom back. You're done. But God has told us, as long as we are alive, we have the opportunity to turn to God. You've got time tonight. If there is a need in your life tonight to come to God, won't you take it right now while we stand and while we sing?
Oh, do not let the worry find, and close thy eyes against the light. Your sinner heart and not thy heart, be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Without be saved, then why not tonight? Tomorrow's sun may never rise to bless thy longitude decide. This is the time, oh, then be wise, be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Without be saved, then why not tonight? Our blessed Lord refuses none who would to him their souls unite. He live, obey, the work is done. Be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Without be saved, then why not tonight?